All right, guys, welcome back to the Athlete Podcast. This week we have Cody Morris, Master Sergeant with the Marine Corps. Cody, glad to have you on here, and would love to hear, just to kind of start things off with, just if you could tell our folks a little bit about your background, your service background, and a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for having me. I guess a rough background for me is I joined in 2008 uh, into the infantry. Originally, I was an assaultman. That's kind of anti-armor breaching specialty. Started off doing that. Was sent back to the School of Infantry to become an 0352 anti-tank missileman. So I kind of expanded upon that anti-armor background. Shortly after that, deployed to Afghanistan, did the invasion of Marja in 2010, which at the time was kind of the center of gravity for the Taliban in the worst province of Afghanistan, Helmand Province. Went in there to pretty much destroy their bankroll. The poppy that was grown there is what turned into heroin. Heroin turned into cash. It was financing their operations. So we went in there to destroy their bankroll and also just give control back to the government. So I went to Marshall in 2010, came back, became a team leader, did the workup for that, went back to Marja in 2011. I got to see that transition from like the invasion and clearing it out to kind of the build phase, rebuilding it, seeing the infrastructure go up and the relationships improve with the people and whatnot. Also was a vehicle commander while I was there, and then came back, re-enlisted to spend 2 more years with that unit, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. They were looking to retain NCOs with combat experience to go back to Afghanistan a third time in 2012. At the time, the Arab Spring was jumping off in Tunisia and Libya and all those countries, and the TEEP shifted the schedule of who's deploying where, and I ended up going on a UDP to Okinawa. Was spent 7 months out there in the Pacific. While I was there, I was a section leader for CAT. Was in charge of 4 trucks, and then eventually became the platoon sergeant of CAT. Had about 60 Marines in my charge at that point. Finished my time at 3-6. Left there as a platoon sergeant. Went to Paris Island. Trained recruits for 3 years, not as a drill instructor, but as a weapons and tactics instructor, land navigation, fire team movement, hand and arm signals, all that type of stuff, the combat focused part of their training. Got promoted to staff sergeant down there, went back to the fleet, the 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, where I spent time as in CAT again, as a platoon sergeant, and then went over to be a weapons platoon sergeant in Charlie Company, and then finished my time there as a company gunny. Went on recruiting duty for 3 years, went into that trench, found the best qualified young men and women for the organization for those 3 years out of RS Raleigh, which is where I met Cameron, shared vision on making an impact on future leaders of this country.
What years were you there?
I was there from 2019 to 2022.
We definitely have crossed paths.
Okay. Were
So
you
I
were you next?
report yeah, I was next door. I was in the Garner office.
Okay, yeah. So we
So
definitely crossed paths.
yeah, I was there in 22 to 25.
Okay, yeah. I left
Um,
in June of 22 was kind of when I got off the bag.
yeah.
Yep.
Were
So
you Garner Station Commander?
no, so I was a fill-in. It was a large enough station that they used that one for the 8412 like career recruiters. So I filled in probably collectively for about a year worth of time, but due to the size of the station, they didn't really put anyone in charge of it unless they had chosen to stay a recruiter. But like I said, I have like broken time of about 12 months worth of leading a station where I was still responsible for my own area of operations, but also, all the stuff that goes into the maps and the quality control of the packages and whatnot. So I had
Oh
to
my
wear 2
God.
hats. Yeah, that was
You gave me a fucking PTSD flashback.
yeah, spicy memories. But got that done and got sent up to Quantico. Spent 2 years up there, headquarters Marine Corps, as an operations chief for a battalion that had about 1,900 Marines in it. Um, got my degree while I was up there out of Liberty University. Graduated right before I left, and then got to 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines, where I was a company gunny again. Got selected to Master Sergeant. Didn't want to get PCS out west. Have a lot of family here. Wanted to stay close by, and was able to get orders over here to the Staff NCO Academy, which is where I'm at right now. And I'm a leadership and warfighting instructor for non-commissioned officers and staff non-commissioned officers, where they learn about leadership and warfighting to be able to be promoted to the next grade and actually have the knowledge and skills necessary to do it well. And that's where we're at. I hit 18 years in May, and I intend to retire in early 28, Lord willing.
So one of the things we bonded over and gosh, was that 2019, 2020, whenever we started kind of introducing the military concepts, the military leadership principles with these sports teams, we found out very quickly that, to these athletes, the military, for lack of a better way to put it, is really cool to them. There's a lot of things that they don't know, but some of the things that kind of stood out to them is the brotherhood, the camaraderie. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of describing what makes the Marine Brotherhood so strong, and why is that so similar to what we see like in football or the soccer and a lot of the sports? Like, can you kind of describe the Marine Brotherhood and maybe also touch on a point where that came in handy, especially when you were dealing with a tough situation?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a firm believer at the end of the day, the quote, don't know who said it. You're probably going to hear that a lot today. I've grabbed onto a lot of useful sayings and models and whatnot, but I can't really attribute it to anybody. But the saying that love is shared misery. And that's why the Marine Corps creates such deep bonds. Marine Corps is really big on this idea of like, we're not here to throw bells and whistles at you. We're not going to promote you. We're not going to give you a bonus. We're just going to give you uh, incredibly tough challenge, and with that will come pride of belonging. And then they follow through. You get sent to boot camp, spend 13 weeks there. You're not even allowed to refer to yourself in the first person. It's this recruit. You're a recruit. You don't even get called a Marine until you're in the title. To earn the title, it's that culminating event of the crucible. Over the course of over 48 hours, minimal food, minimal sleep, being pushed to the absolute brink, and all of that stuff you're doing. Ultimately, you hate it while you're doing it. It looks really cool in the commercials. You're not thinking about what it feels like to be dehydrated, what it feels like to be homesick, what it feels like to be all these things. But that's the stuff you're proud about when you're done, and that's the stuff that the stories you're telling when you go back home, and everyone's asking how it was and whatnot. And that just kind of continues throughout your career. After you make it through boot camp, you go to this. I went to the School of Infantry, where I was challenged again, all these hard gates. Having to hike at a certain time with a certain load, or you get dropped, or pass this certain evaluation, this live fire event, or these written tests, or you get dropped. And that's kind of like becomes your forcing mechanism, is you don't want to disappoint the guys around you. You want to be seen as one of them. You want to be relied upon. You don't want to be a liability. You want to be an asset. So it's constantly driving you to push beyond the brink of what you thought possible, and that's just training. And then where it became useful was combat. You got to ask yourself. It definitely ain't the pay that inspires a young man to charge towards a machine gun bunker, to risk life and limb for a nation that's not his own. Yeah, we can say that in theory, uh, improving the quality of life for the Afghan person is a noble thing, but then it's your life on the line. You're trading your future for someone else's future. So that stuff, I'll be the first to tell you, at least for me, very quickly that extra stuff falls away. The patriotic stuff and the this and that. It's all about your brothers on your left and right, and making sure they get home, and making sure that you maintain that mutual trust and respect. And that's what makes you accept the risk. That's what makes you press on despite the constant danger and friction and fear that you're feeling, is that they truly do become brothers. And I think sports are a great medium that replicate that in a lot of ways, depending on the culture of the team and the amount of time spent, the amount of together, especially if you're breaking bread, especially if it's not just on the field. They become your friend group. You start meeting families. Like, the relationship, to the degree that the relationship deepens, is the degree of and the culture will dictate how much camaraderie you experience. And that's why, like I said, the Marine Corps is just really good at it because they're constantly throwing you into miserable conditions. And if you maintain composure and you are an asset and you're counted as one of the tribe, then that becomes a tremendous source of pride and self-respect. And then you become a leader and you want to, instill that in your subordinates. And it just kind of self repeats over time and it gets ingrained in who you are. So
Yeah. So, Joe, this sounds familiar to what Ramos said a few weeks ago, which was, it's not wanting to let down your brother, and that's kind of the driving force. It's just, everything you're doing. It's almost that peer accountability where there's no word shared. It's just, I just don't want to let him down. And that's why I'm going
Yeah,
to keep going. So I thought that was interesting that he said a lot of similarity there.
I think I was actually telling that to my wife like a couple months ago. I'm like, if the everyday civilian realized like it over time, it really shifts from like I want to. It really does go from all the things that are advertised to I just don't want to let my peers down. And that's ultimately what it is. Like I did 8.5, almost 9 years, and probably after the first 2 years, I'm like, okay, this is what it's about. It's about not letting down my, family to the left and right that you just suffer with day in and day out, whether it's through training or on deployment, whatever it is that you're doing. It's, that's what matters. It's not really all like obviously the advertised stuff like for God and country and, like that still holds a lot of weight, but like it really is, I think, from my experience, it boils down to not letting down the dudes to your left and right. So I,
Absolutely.
I would
Absolutely.
100% agree with that.
So Cody, one of the things I was always thinking of, so I just recently came into a semi leadership role. And it's funny how you study this for so long and you know what it takes. But then once you finally get there, it's almost like you kind of have to make this decision, okay, like what leader am I going to be? Like how am I going to do this? I can't come off and fabricate this. I can't come off and be like, Mr. Stoic and doing all these different things. It almost has to be like a reflection of yourself. Like you still need to be authentic at the end of the day.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, when you first stepped into a leadership role, was there things that you struggled with? Was there, what would you say was your weakness like right out the gate, and how did you kind of overcome that? Was there anything that came to mind that, this new leadership role exposed for you, and then you had to overcome that?
Yeah, so luckily the way that the Marine Corps does it, it kind of paves the way for you. Before you're ever put in a leadership position, you got to earn your stripes, like literally and figuratively. So you come in with just very low expectations of you. You're a private first class. There's really no responsibility outside of like your basic job description that anyone is expecting of you. But pretty much right out the gate, they're looking to see who is showing the initiative, the self-discipline, the desire to grow from that. Like who here is to check a box, who here is a problem child, and who here can I mentor to increasing levels of responsibility and capability. And so from there you get sent to like follow-on schools. So now your knowledge base is building and like what you bring to the table starts increasing, and they start throwing little opportunities at you to lead. Normally stuff that, not the big sexy stuff that everyone dreams of. You're not going to be leading the charge in some kind of complex combined arms attack or something. It's going to be like, hey, grab your buddies and go police call, pick up all the trash around these barracks, like go supervise everyone cleaning their rooms on Thursday night for the field day inspection. But they want to see if you're faithful in little before they give you something to be faithful in much. Um, so for me, I picked up corporal faster than my peers, not necessarily because I was better. The way that it kind of works without going down a rabbit hole is you got the infantry, but then it gets broken down into different specialties. So you got riflemen, machine gunners, mortarmen, anti-tank, assaultmen, and based on the Marine Corps' needs for kind of the structure, riflemen make up the majority, and then all those other guys are a specialty. And so when I was an assaultman, it was super difficult to get promoted. There's actually a comic book from the Marine Corps that a guy that was an assaultman made, and he calls himself the Terminal Lance because nobody got promoted to corporal as assaultman because there was just such a limited quantity to be promoted. But then when I got back to the School of Infantry and I became an anti-tank missileman, they were promoting quick. So I just happened to pick up sooner than a lot of my peers that were waiting for their time in service, time in grade prerequisites. So I learned real quick that the hardest thing was leading peers because these guys have been in as long as I'd been in. They'd been on the same deployments I'd been on, had a lot of the same experiences, equal levels of fitness. So it's super difficult to lead when you're coming from that position because it's not like I have this wealth of knowledge or ability, and that's why I'm here. It was just timing. And I found out real quick who the real ones were, who were my friends, the ones that weren't hanging me out to dry when I got told, like, hey, you are gonna, field day the barracks, which were the ones that were like, oh, Cody's in charge. I'm gonna go to, the store and I'm gonna go screw off the rest of the night and blow this off because he's in charge. Versus the ones who realize that I'm on the hook in the morning if this ain't done right and ask me like, what do you need? How can I be helpful? They weren't exposing my backside to my command. And that was really the most difficult part. If you can lead your peers, you can lead anybody. So that's probably a hard thing that you might find yourself in, that if you were peers with some of the people you're leading now. Another thing is that we all shoot ourselves in our foot. When you're a junior Marine and you don't really care, you're not really thinking about leadership stuff yet, you're probably doing some dumb stuff. You're probably not following the standard to the degree that you're supposed to. And your peers are going to be the first ones to remind you that, who are you to tell me to do this thing when I know that you weren't doing it a month ago, 2 months ago? And it becomes really hard to overcome that. And I learned the value of holding a standard and having a reputation above reproach before you go into a leadership position. The time to be a corporal was not when I got the rank on my collar. That I should have been acting that way months before, because no one's going to respect the guy that was a lance corporal on Friday, you know, doing all the bad stuff, and then they get promoted on Monday, and now magically they're like, I'm a corporal, and you're going to listen to me. It doesn't work that way. Did you earn that trust and respect prior to being put in that position? So that was really the hardest part for me that makes or breaks a lot of guys, is their ability to lead peers when they don't have any blatant thing that makes them more qualified. Can you get people on your side? Can you lead them well? Can you represent them well? That's difficult.
Yeah, I feel that from working with some of these young teams, and that's it. Always comes down to that. That is their biggest weakness, and that is always something that is the biggest challenge for the year. It's your teammates, your best friend is on the team, and he's screwing off. He's not showing up for workouts, and then me and the coach come to him and say, "Hey, you need to hold him accountable." Certainly, coach could do that, but coach tends to become white noise after a while. He's said thousands of times, you have to be at workouts at 6 a.m. This kid's still not showing up. We need to look to the leaders to not only set the example, but also hold them accountable, And so, but being able to kind of take off that friend hat and put on the team captain hat, put on the leadership hat. So I'm curious, and then do you have an example, like a story where you had to hold a peer accountable? Like, what did that, because the reason I'm asking this is because I could give examples, but sometimes it's helpful for them to hear, like, okay, well, how do I do that? Like, what is that? How does that sound? Like, what are the words I need to say? What is it? Because this is going to be extremely uncomfortable. So I'm just curious, do you have a story or any tips and tricks for that?
Oh man, it's every step of my career I've been in that position. As a recruiter, you're all senior guys that are part of a team that you'd like to believe that everyone's going to do the right thing. Yeah, I mean, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I want to interject on that. I had my old station commander, my very first station commander in recruiting, called me. We're friends. He called me last weekend, or like 2 weeks ago, whatever. Dude, you want to talk about the biggest leadership challenge in the military? Go be a station commander or go try and be a successful recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how it is on the Marine Corps side, but I know in the Army, it's either you're voluntold you're going to do it or you volunteer you're going to do it.
Same thing.
And about 70% of my office was voluntold recruiters. And then on top of that, 90% of us were infantry guys. Or it was like 80% was infantry. So you have a bunch of grunts who don't want to be there, who immediately have this arrogance on because of what, their job of being infantry, over the guys that are either, volunteers or the station commander that was probably didn't come from a combat role. And they essentially, like, without saying it, they say it, they just tell you to go screw yourself every day. And
Mm-hmm.
you see it all the time where you're like, if you do this correctly, you can really slingshot yourself into a very good career on the outside world, because recruiting is 100% adjacent to sales. I mean, it's sales. It's just how you word it. Like employment services, it's the grittiest sales you can imagine. On the
Mm-hmm.
Army side, you're going door to door, you're going to high schools, you're building relationships, you're going to universities, cold calling. But you just see like a lot of guys go out there and the pendulum would swing for me myself, man. I'm not, I can admit it. Like I would go in for like 2-3 months and I'd be crushing it. And I'd go in and be like, what am I doing, dude? This is
Mm-hmm.
a waste of time. This is stupid. The command doesn't care. The biggest self-leadership challenge I have ever had in my entire Army career was
100%.
being a recruiter.
Yes. I would go to combat again before I ever was a recruiter again because of what he's alluding to. Because
Dude,
the,
yeah.
the challenge at every level, the challenge of leading your peers in that environment, it's not
Oh
a
man.
9 to 5. It is entirely a lifestyle. It's like 36 1-month deployments for us. It's the same thing. You're volunteer, you're voluntold. But at the end of the day, no matter who you are, everyone's used to being stellar. That's probably why they got put on the list to have to go be a recruiter, because the Marine Corps cares about who the face of the Marine Corps is across all of America. You're not surrounded by a team of Marines. It's an independent duty. A lot of the people you meet for the first time that they see a Marine in uniform is going to be you. Like you said, you're in the schools, you're on the campuses, you're at local events. So normally the people that get handpicked to get sent out there are pretty stellar, but they have no idea what they're heading into because they've never had to operate apart from a team. And in one way, yes, like we as a station are responsible for this, but there was like 50 Marines responsible for all of Eastern North Carolina,
Yep.
broken into like 4-man teams, 5-man teams for large areas. And even though like we're in an office together, I got these 6 schools in this geographical area that's my responsibility, and you got yours. So we're kind of like always gone, and we're like ships passing in the night, except for like, certain times of the day or certain functions during the week. And it's a grind from 05
Yeah.
to 2100 every day, 9 o'clock at night.
That's not a joke either. Like, and that the army does it different, but I remember, so one, in Iraq, not to combat, we didn't leave the installation, we were fobbits, right? But I would go back to Iraq and sleep inside of a tent for a year before I ever went back on the recruiting trail. I would
Yeah.
go back, sleep inside of a tent, and not be able to shower for a year before going back into recruiting. The Marine Corps, though, because the office that I was at, they had a new station commander, younger guy, come in. I forget his name, but I really liked him. He was a great dude because we split that office, and he turned it around. The guy before, so they were having like 96-hour passes and shit. Like they were, Friday. It was really funny because like the Army side, it's like, yeah, if you're above a 1.0 write rate, and you're at your mission, you're not working on Fridays.
Not us.
Not the Marine Corps. Not the Marine Corps. If you were at a 1.0 write rate in the Marine Corps and you had made your mission for the year, you get the amazing opportunity to maybe leave work that day at 5. Maybe.
Mhm.
It was different, man, but you guys invested. What I saw, you guys deeply invested in your schooling. That was the huge difference. Like my school was 6 weeks. You guys are going away to recruiting college for, isn't it like 4 months?
It depends on what level that you're operating at, but it's 2 months to start, and then there's follow-on schoolings once again. And yeah, I mean, I definitely see the value. Like you said, it's sales. No one wants to talk about it like that, but in reality, that's what it is. And then that's what they spend, the art of having a conversation, the art of being able to listen with purpose, not with a purpose. Being able to understand what someone's really saying as they unload their life story and be like, what's important to you? Like, what do you need and what motivates you? And how can I provide that through your service? So I'm not trying to sell you a bill of goods that isn't a good fit for you. So yeah, we spend an insane amount of time not only going to that school, but then each month doing training, either holistically as a recruiting station with all of us up at headquarters, or just together as a small team working on those skills, which have continued to serve me well as a father, as a husband, as a leader. But yeah, you're right, man. Like, it was murderous. Like, I never worked on Christmas Day, but I was there on the 26th a couple times. Like, because it wasn't ever enough. I mean, when I was there, it was during the COVID crisis too.
Oh my God.
So there are no schools. There is nobody to
Dude.
talk to on the street. They look at you like a pariah. So it was all the normal spiciness of being a recruiter, just with 10 layers of difficulty on
Jack
top.
it up fucking
Yeah, you
10,000, dude.
couldn't
And
get in front of your.
we haven't even dabbled into MEPS,
Oh no,
like military and processing station in
no.
Raleigh. And I mean, dude, our MEPS, and not to like, I'm not, bashing, but well, yeah, I don't, I'm not in, but the Raleigh MEPS was so poorly managed. I was transporting applicants to Richmond, Virginia. 2.5 hours one way, 2.5 hours back. I had a guy, and this is like peer-to-peer leadership, man, because I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. I'm not doing it. Like, I have a kid, he's 6 months old. I had a buddy, Rod. He drove to Richmond 5 days a week, the week of Christmas, because we couldn't take leave. Because it has to go, dude. Like, the office has to be open. He was driving, like, leading up to Christmas. He drove a MEPS every single day. And we had off Christmas. Then, and he told me, and he made that deal because everyone he took leave was like, hey, dude, whatever comes in, like the funnel, they're his. And everyone was like, yeah, I mean, that's fair, dude. He's working it. But this dude drove to Richmond 5 hours a day. It was crazy. He told me that. I was like, oh my God. He called me. He's like, yeah, dude, like my body hurts from sitting. So they eventually got Raleigh MEPS fixed. It was processing much better when I left, man. But there was at one point, dude, I remember like, it was, you can't even, it's such a rabbit hole, dude. Like, I don't even know where I would start if they hired me as a leadership consultant to fix it. Like,
No. And I guess back to your question, Cameron. Well, since we've talked about it, we've established some context for it. Let's talk about when I had to lead my peers on recruiting duty. So, because of everything we're talking about, how demoralizing by nature this job is, no matter what kind of rock star you were, you've now been transplanted out of your job field. You're not supply, you're not logistics, you're not intel, you're not comm, you're not infantry. You're a recruiter now. And you're completely outside of your wheelhouse, which is kind of nuts when you think about it. Like, in the civilian world, imagine, with you being an attorney or whatever, them uprooting you from being an attorney and being like, you're going to do sales for 3 years. And if you don't do it well, you're not going back to being an attorney.
that's literally what it is, dude. I never put it that way. That's fantastic.
And then on top of that,
just working some new skill sets. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. It's like, but that's what I'm talking. It's like, you're going to bloom where you're planted. It's up or out. And trying to motivate people that are, I mean, we obviously established the time. Like, even though my family was 15 minutes away, I felt like I was, deployed. It was really hard to see my wife and kids. I was gone before they wake up. I was back after they were asleep. I had a newborn. I already had and 2 older kids and a newborn when I got out there. So, like, you're trying to motivate people through all this. They're taking face shots from the schools that don't want them there, from parents that don't want to talk to them, kids that were motivated back out. All the stuff that's going on in the news. It doesn't matter if it was another branch, if some headline had to do with the military, you're dealing with it with concerned parent, rightfully so. But like, you're just it is just so brutal.
By the way, Cam, it's all your fault.
Yes, it's always your fault.
Like, it's so always your fault, man.
On that Sunday morning when you go to pick up that young man or woman to take them to MEPS to go to boot camp, if they don't go, someone's going, because that empty seat at boot camp translates to an empty seat at their MOS school, which translates to an empty seat in the fleet, which translates to somebody who's going downrange, not mission ready. So that's how serious they take it. And that's why it didn't matter that COVID hit or whatnot. The size of the Marine Corps didn't change. So the demands were the same, even though all the tools that we normally had to be able to find, qualified applicants were taken away. And the only thing I had going for me, to your question, was that I, as I'd alluded to before, had conducted myself as a canvassing recruiter before I was put in a position to lead them in a way that I was never telling my guys to do anything that I had not or was not doing myself. And they knew that and they saw that. If I was one set of standards when I was in and now I'm trying to hold them to another standard, that's where I saw a lot of the unsuccessful leaders happen, because it all comes down to mutual respect at that point. And we can talk about it later. One of my favorite one of my favorite leadership kind of ideas is John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, and how it starts at position. Like, cool, your rank or your billet, that makes you the leader, but that is in no way, shape, or form actually make you a leader just by having it in title. Like, the rank on my collar gives me authority, it doesn't get me respect. My character does that. So if I want to lead, I need to get to at least level 2, which is permission. That the person that I'm leading actually wants me to lead them, actually wants me to mentor them. That's a minimum. And in order to do that, you've had to demonstrate, if you were a really bad recruiter, or you were really bad at taking care of the team, or really bad with your time management, if you weren't crossing T's and dotting I's, and now you're trying to enforce other people to do those things, never going to work. So that allowed me to be able to pull them in and be able to say, hey, man, this is what you're doing great. This is what you need to sustain. But this is what you're not doing great. And this is what you need to improve. And this is how long you have to improve. And this is the metric for improvement. And if you don't do it, this is inevitably the consequence. But then follow through. Like, don't just throw them back out to the wolves and expect them to figure it out. What is the issue here? Is it a training problem? Like, you want to be successful, but you don't know how? I'll train you. I'll go out with you. I'll demonstrate for you. I will help you. I'll sit down with your package and I'll make sure that we're not screwing it up. I'll go out with you to your school and help you understand how to build these relationships in an organic way, not like a sleazy car salesman way that gives recruiters a bad name. I'm going to demonstrate to you. But if you're the other kind of problem where you're capable, you just don't want to, now that's a behavioral issue. And now I can just start holding you accountable and giving you, instead of a carrot, a stick that's going to end your career because you've chosen yourself over your team. And because of that, there's no place for you in this organization. So it all has to do with embodying the standard and following through with your subordinates on your expectations of them.
I think to follow up with that, like, I was so lucky, and I'll say that to anyone, man. Like, I had three station commanders while I was there, and every single one of them brought a different, like, positive type of light to the end of the tunnel, I guess, in recruiting. Like, the first guy, he was good at his skill sets. The second guy was really good at his skill sets, and then the third leader, who was a female, she was great with her. And they all shined where they wanted to shine at, and they all led a little bit different. But, like, I think where the break in the chain was with the Army is, if you're not successful, they just send you back to the line.
Not
Yeah,
us, single
yeah,
line.
and that was the biggest difference, because we had built such a strong relationship with the Marine office, because you know how it was over there where we were at. You essentially share office space. There's a wall in between. So we had a very good working relationship with the last station commander, who actually, he was so successful they gave him Jacksonville, which, from my understanding, that's how the Marine Corps recruiting command he told me, congratulates you, because that's the highest productive
Oh, yeah.
station. Because you're right there in Lejeune, right?
hmm
We had a great relationship with him, man, and he was very, 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 like, you could tell, like, he led me without even working for him, as a other branch, because there was not one day I saw him where he wasn't charismatic and fully prepared to just do his job.
hmm
And it was like, all right, man, like, I'm bitching because I'm working till, whatever, 5:30, 6. I was here an hour, 2 hours early. Like, this dude's over there smiling and he's not getting off of 4:09 p.m. 2100. So, and it's every day. He was there before us. He left after us. He was the last person in, first person in, last person out amongst the Marines. I wish I remember his name, dude, because he was fucking stellar. Stellar, man. Covered in
And
tattoos.
yeah, I think that two things that the station did really good there, kind of symbolism to drive home what you guys are talking about. When you got your first uh enlistment, they gave you an oar. It's actually back there on the wall. I don't know if you guys can see it. This oar right here. So, and the idea behind it was they were talking about, essentially Greek warriors when they went to war. Um, your standing amongst your peers would be tied to, was your oar wet? Like on the approach to the beach, was every oar in the water in the attack? And if yours came back not, then obviously you were sandbagging and you really don't belong to the team. So that was like your kind of your first symbol that like you were now or in the water part of this team. To be a boss, a staff NCOIC, staff non-commissioned officer in charge, they got a shield, like a big Greek, like hoplite looking shield. And the idea was that you are a shield to your team. And like you talked about, being the first one in, last one out, that's not just some checklist to be like, well, it's just a matter of time if I'm the first one in, last one out. That can be sacrificial leadership, or that can just be putting on a show. But the one who was the first one in, because once again, I embody what I expect, and he was in there early, setting conditions for us to be successful, taking work off our plate so we could go out and do what we need to do. That's an outstanding leader. He's doing the paperwork. He's doing quality control. He's driving individuals to MEPS. He knew that my love language was time. I had an outstanding boss there. His name was Creed. He knew that my love language was time. So he did everything in his power that if I did well that day, regardless of what kind of nasty conversation he was going to have with hire, because they measure everything. They try to take the art of the human interaction and make it a science. And they measure in things like how many phone calls were made, how many people did you talk to on the street, how many messages were sent or this or that. And that's how they can tell if someone's putting in the work or not. And he would send me home. He'd be like, hey, man, it's an outstanding day, outstanding attitude, go see your wife and kids. And he would have to answer the next day for why my quotas weren't done. They're like, hey, why is he so far off the mark for the day, so far off the mark for the week? And he would have to be a shield and be like, hey, this is a marathon, not a sprint. He earned that time. I'm taking care of him, because if I squeeze him like he's some kind of livestock just to get every ounce of production out of him, that's how teams and cultures break. That's how toxicity increases. And that's how you don't want to share a space with someone that you're with 18 hours a day. So he understood that dynamic, and he embodied that shield.
That comes from the seven habits of a highly effective person. Was it production input versus production output? So like it's that old folk tale they talk about all the time where about the farmer and the golden egg. Like the livestock keeps producing these golden eggs once every day, and then all of a sudden this farmer wants more than one golden egg, so he cuts open his animal, and then he just kills he kills his animal, so his production output's gone. I had a really, like, to bring up the guy you worked for in there, we had one station. So like the Raleigh battalion at one point, our guidelines were, if you hit this certain number, you're not working these days. And then the station commanders all got together and said, well, we're losing our most productive recruiters for 20% of the work week, which is a hell of a way to word that, because it sounds a lot worse than it actually is. And so the company commander got together. He was like, hey, like, I am retracting this statement. It's up to your station commanders if they want to honor this incentive policy any longer. And I remember everyone was bought into, like, there's no way our station commander is going to honor this shit. Like, there's no way. And he did. He was like, yeah, man, you guys are absolutely crushing it. We're about to make mission for the first time since 2017 or 2019. I'm not going to take this from you guys. But if I call you on a Friday because your paperwork's fucked up, then I expect you open up your computer and you're going to QC the packet and you're going to get it fixed. Which he did that, and it simultaneously made us work harder Monday through Thursday because I didn't want him to call me on Friday. So
Yep.
I'm going to ensure that my packet's not screwed up.
Yep.
And man, we were convinced he was going to say no, but it goes back to your point, like for the most part, I would say that's a big thing in the military. Like, my love language is my time. I don't want to be here with you in uniform. I don't. As much as I love you, I want to be home. I want to be chilling. If I'm sitting on my ass during my free time, it's my free time. I'm choosing to sit down,
Yep.
So
There's so many things I want to touch on and just listening to you guys and your experiences. But let's talk about, you brought up the 7 effective habits. Cody, one of the things I've come to learn is that, like guys like Jim Mattis, he had a reading list that he would
Yep.
always have his junior leaders, if not more folks, read. So the importance of reading as a leader, how would you describe that? Like, is that, I know you're a big reader. Just curiosity, like how did that affect your leadership style? Do you encourage reading, with your subordinates? What are your thoughts on, how I think even Mattis even said, you can't lead if you don't read,
Yep.
So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so it's funny you said that, because when we originally were talking about today, I started thinking about that, and I wrote down 3 quotes from from General Mattis that live rent free in my head.
Is this call sign
And
chaos, by the way?
yeah,
Yeah.
so and he talks about the 1,000-year-old mind. And I think the best quote that he ever has of depicting what he means by the 1,000-year-old mind, it was when he was a commander in Iraq early on in the invasion, and it was some massive decision that had to be made, that the consequences were going to be severe. There was going to be secondary, tertiary effects. And the reporter interviewing him was like, "Sir, I'm just marveling that it took you 30 seconds to make a situation or a decision of such gravity." And he says, it it didn't take me 30 seconds, it took me 30 years. And what he was talking about was that the cumulative experience and knowledge and everything that he had read, that 1,000-year mind. He talked about how, we've been around for 5,000 years fighting each other. It would behoove us to take lessons of the past. He said things like, if you haven't read over 100 books, you're functionally illiterate. And that's the way that he saw it. It might not be personal experience, but it's synthetic experience. And it's foolish of us to think of all, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And that there is somebody out there who committed words to paper for my benefit, that their lesson learned was so powerful that they go through the trouble of writing this book for me to not take advantage of that. And it is that combination of personal experience and synthetic experience that allows you to have the foundation in your mind to be able to anticipate and improvise as the situation demands. And I'd actually expand upon it. The Marine Corps is really big on a guy named John Boyd, that was an Air Force pilot, and he came up with what's called the OODA loop, which some people have heard of, where you observe, orient, decide, act. He took the process that naturally happens in your brain and he kind of codified it. And the reason why I bring that up is because that orientation phase, where you're observing something happening in your environment that's going to lead to a decision and action from you, everything that's happening in your mind is informed by what we just talked about: my training, my education. Have I seen this before? And the better prepared your mind is, the faster you can arrive to a decision and an action, and you can outcycle your enemy. You're making decisions and you have the initiative, you have momentum, and you're forcing your enemy to react and react and react. And they make mistakes, they make mistakes, they make mistakes, and eventually they culminate. You're able to exploit their weaknesses. You see it in UFC fights, you see it in the business world. You see with like Blockbuster was too big to fail. Netflix was an emerging technology. They were a closed circuit. They could have bought them up early. They didn't. And because when they were going through their orientation phase on what is this new thing called Netflix, what is this new thing called streaming, they arrived to a decision and action that cost them dearly. And it's just that idea that being a reader and building up that orientation that takes place inside my mind. So as problems present themselves, I already have like an 80% solution in there from either something I've read or seen or experienced or been mentored about. That's what makes you adaptive and makes you powerful as a leader. Otherwise, you're just relying on your own experience, which is very finite. So that's why it's so significant to me.
I was just reading, so another decorated figure in the Marine Corps history is Chesty Puller.
Yes, people.
And I was just reading in here where it just said, later recall Puller's love for books. He gave the impression of being a little bit illiterate, but he wasn't. He was more scholarly than you think, and he read a great many military books. He was a great student of history. So it goes to show you. I mean, just even some of and Puller, who was always lead by the front, and there's countless stories in this book. Have you ever watched like the Pacific on
Uh-huh.
HBO? They give you a little picture of what Chesty Puller was like, but still doesn't capture the complete, how incredible that human being was. I know we're winding down here. I have two more questions for you. You mentioned the oar behind you.
Hmm.
I think we share a love for this, but chapter 2 of Extreme Ownership with Boat Crew 2 and Boat Crew 6.
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to do the whole summary here, but I want to hear your opinion on when they change these leaders. Okay. They take the successful Boat Crew 2, who was coming in first every single time, and they put that leader now in charge of Boat Crew 6, who Boat Crew
Hmm.
6 was last every single race. The leader had a victimization mentality. Woe was me. I got a crappy team. I can't win with these guys. So they take the good leader and take him now to Boat Crew 6. My question for you is, what is going on as soon as that leader gets to that squad? What what is he saying? What is he doing? What did he do to transform that boat crew? In your opinion, I know obviously this is, different branch, different different, boot camp and whatnot. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, first things first is to be honest and objective about the reality on the ground. The facts of the matter is that this team has come in last every time, and really trying to get to the root cause of why that is, and then formulating a plan holistically. Because if Marines or anyone who's being led, if they don't trust you, if they don't respect you, um, they honestly, let's be honest, they want to see you fail. If I create plans in a vacuum with people that don't trust me or respect me, they're like, the plan's stupid, you're stupid, I hope it fails. That's how I'm gonna get back at you as somebody who's subordinate to you. But if that mutual trust and respect is created, if we are in this fight together and we have built this plan together, now you got skin in the game because I brought you in and you advised me on what was broken and how it needs to be fixed, and I trusted you. And we are in this together. Once that trust and respect is created, and sometimes it does take time, but once you create that, then you're able to leverage it, right? And now people want to go out and they want to see the plan succeed because their reputation's tied to it, and they care about you and they care about the team. So the most important step, because time and space didn't allow him to like, hey, let us come back in 6 weeks and do a boat race. Let me develop the culture. Right out the gate was just leading from the front, leading by example, showing that I'm out there carrying the same weight. My leadership is a burden. It's not a privilege. I'm not going to be sitting here barking at you and telling you to lift harder and higher while I'm sitting there in the back. I'm going to lead from the front. That establishes that rapport and that trust. And then seeing for himself if what the victim leader said is true. All he did was blame his team for his failure. And once he realized that it was a lack of synergy, a lack of belief, a lack of trust, just by building that, communicating, by treating people with mutual respect, firmness, fairness, and leading from the front, all of a sudden those guys realized that like it wasn't that they was a bad team. It's just that the culture had created toxic feedback loops where everybody's blaming each other, no one's taking accountability, no one is formulating a plan and communicating it effectively. You as the leader have to model that. If you're MFing everybody and kicking everybody in the shins and blaming everybody, they're going to do it too. But if you let the buck stop with you and get them to believe in what it is you're trying to achieve and then lead from the front, that's how you see that rapid shift. And it's constant for us because every 3 years in the Marine Corps, you're going somewhere new. Sometimes you fall in on a great unit, sometimes you're falling in on a bad one, and you don't have the ability to just sit there. Like now it's yours. So what are you going to do with it? What's broken and how do you intend to fix it? Because you can only blame the guy before you for so long. And then I think that's the big factor.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the Army and really across the military is as it almost seemed like as soon as someone great's in charge and they implement the change that the group wants to see and the unit starts to thrive, they get put on orders and they're out, and like and I always say this, to my son's godfather, played at University of Kentucky, then went on to go play at Miami, Ohio, and the similarities between Division I sports, in particular, like football, and just the day-to-day life in the military is so similar because, we're there for 3 years and then we have to, all right, dude, I just got voluntold to go across the country. You got to pick up, and that's all hard. I got to pick up, I got to move my family. I got to reestablish myself. Maybe I can network. There may be someone in the unit already over there that can kind of, hey, there's this good dudes coming in, or I know no one at all. And I have to literally reestablish myself with humility and work my way back up and earn trust and respect from my peers.
Mhm.
Um, in college athletics, especially Division I, like football, coaches leave like the seasons change. I mean, they're in and out, especially in today's world. I mean, look at the situation. I know, not sure if you're familiar, but like Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. I mean, dude, right before the playoff, that happened. So the similarities are just so strong. So I like that you said that, man, because a lot of people don't understand that.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you need to run, Cody. But just to kind of put a button on that, it just seems to me that leading with humility, kind of embracing the sacrificial mindset of what it means to be a leader, and really that team understanding and knowing that you do care about them, and this is not just lip service. I think with coaches nowadays, you see that, and it's a lot of fabrication, a lot of, well, I'm just here for this year. I'm here to get mine. Players know that. They can smell it a
Mhm.
mile away. Same thing with the players who are really in here who actually do care about this team, and they're not just trying to up their credentials so that they can go into the transfer portal.
Yep.
It's really just fully embracing it and fully making sure that your players know that you actually do love them and you love this job. You love this gig. So, Cody, thank you so much for your time, brother. We do really appreciate it. I know you need to run and we're at time. Is there anything else you want to add to it? Just any shout outs or any
I
last
would
last advice?
I would say that a quote that I wrote on my little book that I carry with me everywhere that I write notes in and whatnot. It says, "Better me, better you, better us, better them," and that stuck with me for a long time. I saw it when I was at a course, and I think it perfectly attaches itself to what we talked about the 5 levels of leadership. So many coaches, so many leaders in this day and age don't even realize that they are a level one just by position. And that until you truly understand, it might be your 20th year, it's my 18th year doing this, but it doesn't matter. When I get a new batch of students and I have them for 5 weeks, that's my first time in front of them. And I can sit there and I can hide behind that I've been in 18 years. I got combat experience. You don't, this and that. I can think I'm better than them, or I can value them even if I'm only exposed to them for 5 weeks. I'm not stuck with them for 3 years. We're not going to be going on any deployments together, but it's valuing them as a young man or woman who they themselves are leaders. Starts with that, starts with caring about the person you're leading. And then from there, giving them everything I got for 5 weeks, earning that respect to go from position to permission. And it's easy for coaches and senior leaders to do where, like you said, it's Groundhog's Day. It's your whatever season, but for them, it's their first. And until you realize that you have to earn that level two to get to the level that they are permitting you to lead them, where they seek out your mentorship, and how you do that. So what I just told you, it starts with a better me. I have to control 100% of the things I say, think, and do. Once I've improved upon my own shortcomings and understand my strengths and how to leverage them, I can now mentor. I can make a better you. And now that I've created a better you, it's a better us. Now me and that NCO that I'm in charge of, that's one of my subordinate leaders. Now that we have that trust and respect, and that we are embodying that professional idea of what we expect, now we can go make it better them. But in the absence of that, if you're not developing yourself and your subordinate leaders in that way, but you think you're going to get the fruit of a team that has initiative and self-discipline and humility and work ethic and all these things that we want in teams, but we rarely see, you are the problem. It's because you've not been given permission. They don't seek out your mentorship. They would not seek you if you did not hold that position. The rank doesn't make me a leader. The man does. And that is demonstrated day in and day out through your sacrificial leadership to your people. So if you're not seeing the results where you're at, you can be like the boat crew leader that's like, well, I just got a crap team. It's not the team, it's you. So take that seriously. And one of the best ways that you can do that, give an anonymous survey to your people and ask them to evaluate you objectively on what you need to improve and what you need to sustain. Do it for your peers. We do that here. My students end of course critiques every class, and they get to say anonymously exactly what they think, good, bad, and ugly. And our peers, same thing. Tell your peers that you teach with where they're at. And now you have to grapple with what your peers think of you and what your students think of you. And if you're in a good place, congratulations, sustain. If you're not, you can be the tortured genius and everyone's got it wrong and you're just really great. They just don't see your greatness. But understand that you're only where you're at because of what's on your collar, not because you've earned anything. And you're constantly earning it. You never get to a point where you rest on your laurels. So that would be my greatest challenge to anyone who truly cares about this.
I think it was 6 years ago or so when you said it's your rank that gives you the authority, but it's your character that gives you respect. And I've been meditating on that ever since. Now I'm going to be meditating on better you, or better me, better you, better us, better them. So well said. Cody, thanks so much for everything that you're doing for our country. You're certainly a role model. You've influenced us, and we hope we can have you back on here at some point down the road. But until then, just thanks for joining us, and just keep putting in the fight, man, and leading
Absolutely.
others.
Yeah, man.
Thank you guys. I greatly appreciate the opportunity. I'd love to come back and talk again.